Our film starts with a woman named Mary, and we learn that she has a cancerous tumor and her condition is very serious and she must start treatment. Chemotherapy, but unfortunately because of poverty, and we know that she has a son named Connor, and the mother was doing everything she could to make him a good person, especially since I know that the father, he was killed by the police because he was a criminal, and the mother then did not want her son to follow in his father's path, and although Connor had superpowers, still, he couldn't work and make money. But before we explain why he can't work, I want to tell you that YouTube tells us that I wish you wouldn't withhold your subscription and that delicious like of yours, and don't forget to write to us from where you are watching us. I finish a country, and after that we find out that about % of humans are born, and they have superpowers, and we find out that the government asks these heroes to. They go out to the world and use their power, they have it to develop the country, and in the beginning, ordinary people liked them and they were living together in a city called Lincoln, and the heroes work alongside ordinary people normally. But over time people began to hate them, gradually, and that's because ordinary people were feeling that they were inferior to them, and that the others were the distinguished ones, so ordinary people began. Robots come to do all the work of the superheroes, and the superheroes no longer find any jobs at all, and the government also increases. This is Nabla, and she is making it compulsory for the superhumans to register themselves in government records, and this is so the government can determine for them where do they work, and of course this is done to exploit these superhumans, but the problem is that if the superhumans decide not to work with the government, the police were arresting them. I mean, basically, either you let them exploit you, or you work in illegal ways because you won't find a job, and therefore the superhumans decided to turn to gangs and robbery, and after that a new type of drug appeared called psyche. And that drug immediately started to fill the streets, and we know that it came from a big criminal gang, and the name of this gang is the Trust, and they were the ones controlling the country. And this drug was made from the liquid of mutants. And since no one gives them work, officially, the superheroes started making and selling drugs. This is for ordinary people, and this is to give them a chance for ordinary people to become. And now we finally understand why Connor couldn't work, and we know that Connor's ability, the superpower, is an electric force inside his body. And Mal was very scared that her son was heading towards forbidden work, and she was afraid that her son would become a criminal like his father, especially since we know that Connor's father had exactly the same electrical ability. After that, Connor starts to notice that the tumor in his mother's hands, he started growing fast. And this was a sign of the cancer she had beginning to increase and enter more dangerous stages. And Connor was very anxious and wants to die, starting chemotherapy. And Kathy Mary told him that she is fine and there is nothing wrong, not to worry, and of course this is because they didn't have money, and she work in Mecca. Okay, but he is in the interview. He finds them asking if he has a superpower or not, and Nurbai knew that they refused him, so he gets up and walks while on the road. He returns and stands at a construction site. He himself asks the supervisor if he needs someone to work with him, and the supervisor, he told him that it was very late, and that he would charge him for only half a day, no more, and Connor, he told him, but I am an hour late. Not half a day, so the supervisor tells him he agrees, or look for someone else, and Connor doesn't have any other choice, so he agrees and starts working with them. And we discover that everything inside basically, they have supernatural, and Connor has a rotation, electric art, and he works with his hands normally. It means our hero holds the wires with his hand and is not affected by electricity at all because it is basically his superpower. And suddenly the police drone reaches, and everyone must leave the building immediately, and the police asked him to look at the drone, because they wipe their eyes, and the purpose of this is so they can know who has ability and who doesn't. And this is because, as we know, the government is not forgiving. To what extent can the supernatural operate without being officially registered? and during the inspection they found someone among him who was wanted by the father. So the police drew their weapons and started arresting him immediately, but anyway, he will be put in the car. The man starts using his superpower and fire comes out. From his hand, he begins to burn the officer's face, then he ran and escaped quickly from the place, and we are surprised by a police robot. They drop down by drone, and they start shooting with fire and finish him off, and then the scene changes to officers who are going to make an arrest. A gang leader, he is the one who deals in the psychoactive substance we talked about, and the operation is carried out under the command of two officers named Mubarak and Davis, and Bark think that he can catch the gang leader, and then without. And secretly, he was in the last kin they used it to make the psych, and after that the officers get very large media coverage, and B. Chad sees one day from the senior leadership and the police. And Connor afterwards. He goes to pick up his mother from work. She is sick. She always used to drop things from her hands, and this used to annoy the shop owner a lot and make him angry, and Connor used to be. He is thinking of using his electrical power on the shop owner, because he was speaking rudely to his mother, but the shop owner is Mary. After that, Mary was very upset with Connor. She told him he needs to learn to control himself, and it's not acceptable to get angry like that every time and have the response be. And he said to her, "Are you tired, Mom? And you must start chemotherapy immediately." But Mary told him that they didn't have enough money. And then, what happened to her? She doesn't even have any more a job that provides food for the house, and the next day, Connor is waiting for work with the runaway owner's friend, and the one who always talks nonsense to him, and tells him that he will get a job, and suddenly a van comes close to them from afar, and God warned him that the people inside there are thugs, and they are acting wrongfully, and they are also. A man gets out of the car named Garrett and starts. He talks to them and says that he needs someone with electrical skills, but they must be at least level 2. Everyone was silent and no one responded. He sincerely, and Jarit was about to leave them and walk away, but Connor told him, "I have the ability and I'm level 2. But he told him, "I want $1 in advance before the work," and his neighbor who was with him started laughing at his words, but after a little while they agreed. When they can't find anyone else, and when Connor gets into the car, he finds 3 people with different abilities, and he forces himself. He had the ability to move things from afar, and it existed in Arabic. One named Freddy, who did not speak, but he had tremendous physical strength. And there was also Maddie, who has the power of fire in her hands, and she can heat her hands to the point that she can melt iron, and then they went to a very large chemical factory, and the gate had an electric system so that no one could enter the factory easily. And I ran. Connor was asked to remove the electricity, and Connor used a very strong electric shock, and the electricity was completely removed from the gate, and here I ran. He understands that Connor is not of the 2nd level, this is from a much higher level than what he had imagined, and then she is able to melt the chain and open the door. After that, they entered the factory and started stealing the barrels inside, and Freddy would be able to do. This is very easy, but Connor, who does not have superhuman physical strength, fails completely. Afterwards, they get caught by a security guard, and the one who starts asking him who they belong to. And here I ran. He tells him that they are workers and they came to fix it. A gate, however, the guard tells him to show their ID cards. And when I ran, the guard refuses, starts to suspect them, and is going to report. His police is on the phone all the time. He runs using his strength and takes it from him, the phone, and then they like to lock him in a box. The garbage, and then everyone goes back to the car. And they escape from the factory. But it won't be easy because they find the drum of the police, and he is walking behind them, and she came trying to go under the bridges to get lost from the drone, and then they reach the workshop. One escapes drugs, and there he meets one of his men, and he begins to tell him that the plan succeeded, and they managed to bring the barrels, and then this man. They take him to the gang leader, and what we know is that his name is Marcus, and then Gerard introduces Connor to Marcus, and Marcus starts. He is welcomed, and after that we find out that Marcus has a superpower that he can read minds. And then he asks for help from his assistant her name is Nia. She is going to get juice for Connor and sit with him, and this is to keep Connor away because he wanted to talk about an important matter. And he ran, and after that we found out that the star Marcus, he was indebted to a very big merchant for a sum enormous, and the merchant wanted that money from him. Within a day, either Marx has to provide him with a very huge amount of the psychedelic drug, and a source says that the police are strict these days, and he can't provide these quantities. And he starts telling me, Garrett, he should hand it over to him. He tells him he must steal money, and, as fast as possible, I ran to reassure him and told him that he will solve the issue. After that, I ran. He starts holding Connor accountable for his work and he gives him a lot of money, and then he offers him to work with them and join the gang. He also sings, and tells him that he will get multiples. This money comes in stages, and Connor needs to think about the matter because he didn't want to work in forbidden things. And when he returns home, his mother tells him she was able to get her work back again and again. One day Connor goes back to sit with his friend Al Awatale and tells him about what happened yesterday, but he is surprised if I run. I pass by in Arabic and call for him again, then when I run they take, and they go sit together in the restaurant. And there, Noor tells him that he is done agreeing and wants to join and become one of them. Then they stand in front of a car, and Jarrett starts saying that he wants to use his power, and he wets the car's alarm system, and when Connor, he feels guilty that he is going to steal the car. Jared tells him, hey Hamada, we are going to rob a bank in 2 days, and that will be your share. Among them, $1, and Noor when he hears these numbers, he gets excited, and he even starts to disconnect the car alarm. And he agrees that they steal it, and then I ran. They take it and go to his workshop in order to teach him the basics of the job, and there he starts. Let him hit with his superpower. And at that time, with your hands, the light bulb went out. So you could light it, and Connor when he tries, he can light him up, and then Connor starts hitting more than one bulb, and he can make them all light up, without touching him, to the point that they explode. And because of the intensity of the light, at night Connor goes back home and starts hiding the money so that his mother doesn't see it, and then when he talks to his mother he says she got accepted for the job she was going to apply for at the company, and that night they decided that this is definitely the day. They robbed the bank, and the gang at that time were wearing masks on their faces, the safe so that he can break its system and open it. And after attempts, Connor actually succeeds in being able to open it, but the shock is when they enter the safe and discover that it is almost empty, and it only contained $1. After that, the alarm starts to go off and they realize that. So the police are on their way to them, and then he starts asking the employee where the money is, sir, and she tells him that the bank manager is counting it. He robs the safe every day and only leaves the money there. And after the failure caused by the gang, they start to escape from the bank before the police arrive. But when they go out into the street, they find the police drone above them there. And Noor begins to use his power and pursues like the drone the police guy, and he actually manages to disable it. And they mess it up, and then they start getting into the car. And they escape, but the neighbor is angry that they failed the mission, and when the gang returned to Marx, Grit started giving him the which they found in the safe, and Grit tells him that they found the safe empty, so the officer got angry because of that. He won't be able to pay the debts he owes to the merchant. And he starts telling the neighbor that this merchant, it's not easy, and he will try to finish him off. Indeed, and Marx doesn't finish his sentence, and we see one of those working with the merchant, and she's coming to finish it, but Connor sees her in the last moment, and he starts to stun her with his force. But the girl is strong and then she can hit and calmly, but the assistant of the center He arrives and can finish it, and in time. We see that she is the girl who works. With Marcus, she is putting anesthetic in her eyes, and then we find Connor going to her. And we find out that Marcus has therapeutic abilities, and it is estimated that it can treat his wound. Here the center starts asking her, "Why are you working with the gang, and you look like a girl? Halal, and you have nothing to do with these things." And she says that her work with the gang is not to her liking, and that if on Saturday the gang, they will finish her off and not. She ignored it, and at night, when Connor returns home, he is surprised that his mother found the money he had hidden, and she then tells him that she was looking for it. And I realized that he was lying to her, and he wasn't working with the company, and she tells him that you must be working illegally, and I continued in the same way as Book and Connor. He tells her that he is not a criminal like his father, because he has to do this to treat her. And when he tries to understand his mother so she doesn't get upset, she faints from her height, and then they take her to the very dangerous, and he tells him that the cancer has spread in her brain and has become difficult to control, and he tells him that they must perform surgery on her immediately. But the disaster is that the operation they are going to do, it will cost $, and Connor will be shocked. He is frustrated because he doesn't even have % from that amount, and when he goes outside the hospital, he finds the officers, Parco and Davis, waiting for him, and then the two of them take him with them because they interrogate him. After that, the two of them start telling him that they suspect him of being the one who robbed the bank with the gang. And this is because of the electricity that destroyed the plane. It was similar to its power, but he says that there are many people who have the same. It's my ability, and this doesn't prove that I am the one who did this. And when the officers couldn't prove it, they repeated it and let him go while he was walking. On the way, suddenly he finds his neighbor getting into the car, and then he runs with him and gets on Marcus. And Mark starts using his power, and he reads his thoughts, and that's to make sure that he hasn't said anything to the police, and then they start talking about a new mission, and they are planning. They do it, and they say there is a drug car. It was caught by the police, and it was full of goods. And this car belonged to the merchant Marcus. He owed me, and if they could get back this Arabic, then Marcus would be able to return his blood. And when Connor feels that the matter, he remained dangerous, he started to hesitate, but he tells him that if he listens to him and carries out the mission with him, then Marcus will let her go with him. His mother is being treated in the hospital, and afterwards Mark will agree to Connor's condition, and my neighbor will start explaining the whole procedure they will carry out to bring them back. Drugs, and we see the drugs, and they are transported in a police car. And this car is very secured. It starts moving in the streets and then the police follow. And as they were walking, they came across construction work being carried out on a street and it was closed. At that moment, the police decided to enter from another street, and at that time, an Arab truck stops on the road and we discover that this is Great's plan, and they were disguised in brown worker clothes and they start to surround the police. After that, Connor starts to electrify the police car, and he succeeds in disabling their robots. After that, Maddie melts. The car throws out complete gas inside. And when this happens, the officers inside get out of the car and the gang begins to threaten them and takes. Among them are the bags. And when they take the bags, they go. The men of Marcos take them to escape with them. But the shock is that Marcos men begin to. You can get into a gang and they start. They're killing them. And they succeed. They kill Freddy and Maddie and then they're trying to kill Gret O'Connor, but a robot comes down from inside the police and succeeds. It kills one of Marx's gang. So because of that, Marx's men try to escape again. With the drug bags and his men, Connor discovers that Freddy was still alive because of his physical ability. Then the two of them take him. And they steal a car and are able to escape from the police. After that, the men return and hand over the bags to Mark. The drugs, and we see Connor as he goes to visit his mother to check on her health. But he finds that her condition has become very dangerous. And at night we find the officer Bark going to a restaurant and we discover that Connor is the one waiting for him. Then Connor starts talking to him about Marcus and begins to expose Marcus' location. Why? And that's because Connor wanted to. He takes revenge on those who did it to them. And when Barak, hearing that, he immediately repeats that he should call the police. And they go and surround Marcus's place, and when Marcus discovers this and starts trying to escape, taking with him Nia and his assistant. They try to escape through a secret door, but they are surprised that he surrounded him at the director and started hitting. They have fire on him, and I ran that he can leave marks. Shooting, and he can also hit his assistant, Raina, but we discover that Raina has superhuman physical strength, and bullets don't affect him, and Raina tries to attack Great, but on. Whenever Connor enters, they start shocking him, but still, Ryan is not affected. And they go trying to create fire. But before he finishes it, I ran. He intervenes and is able to hit him with a small iron rod. In his mind, Connor is taking advantage of this iron. And he begins to electrify it or is able to. He is finishing him off according to his opinion. And then I ran, he goes. And he also starts finishing off Marks and he is able to take revenge for the soul of his friends. But Connor is. He focused more even though she was. And he wanted her to come with him to save his mother from death. But at that moment she started showing him a wound on her hand. And we start to be shocked by the truth that she cannot heal, in essence, no, she can transfer the wounds from other people and they come into her, I mean the wound. What is in her hand is the same wound that Connor had. And therefore, this means that if she treats her mother for cancer, the cancer. Where is she going? Her own self. And she is the one who will die. But drinking begins to take over Connor, and he repeats that he sacrifices her to save his mother, and after that, he takes it with difficulty with the hospital, and it starts. Let her treat his mother, and in this humiliation of hers, he treats, his mother is in a lot of pain. And it's over. The disease will be transmitted to her. But Connor decides to stop her at the last moment. And his conscience comes back to wake him, and Connor remembers that his mother always. She used to tell him not to become a criminal, like his father, and Connor starts apologizing to Lena, and he tells her that after Marx's death, she can go and live her life, but we discover that she is Connor's mother. She had woken up and was able to hear what happened, and in the end, the mother. Connor tells him that she is proud of him, and that he didn't let an innocent person take the illness in her place, and then his mother dies. But she is satisfied with him and proud of her son. And this is because Connor decides that he will not become a criminal and will not follow in his father's way. And here our movie is ending. A final word for you, dear delightful viewer. We really work hard to bring you these videos. Please don't hold back on us with the like and subscription. Hit the strong buttons of yours so you can follow all new updates. That's it, and we'll see you for the best. Bye.